have different expertises. So you guys can ask questions either through a QR code, which you guys can find on our Instagram story. Just go in, put in your question, inshallah we'll read it. And then there should be a section, if not on the Q&A, on the actual link. When you ask a question, just put who you want to ask the question to, okay? So let me make sure it's up there. Okay, or if you guys want, you guys can raise your hand too. All good? Makes sense? You guys want to use camp, you guys know how this is. All right, first on the stage is Brother Sami Hamdi. Sami Hamdi is the Managing Director of the International Interest, a global risk and intelligence company. He advises government institutions, global companies, and NGOs on the geopolitical dynamics of Europe and the MENA region. Has significant expertise in advising on commercial issues related to volatile political environments and their implications on market entry, market expansion, management of stakeholders. Sami is a frequent guest on Al Jazeera, Arabic and English, Sky News, BBC, and other outlets. Next, wonderful, amazing speaker we have over here is Sheikh Mustafa Umar. And I'm sorry, Sheikh, here it is for you guys. I'm just taking long so they have time to get ready. Sheikh Mustafa Umar completed a BS in Information and Computer Science from UC Irvine and a BA in Theology and Islamic Law from the European Institute of Islamic Sciences in France, and an MA in Islamic Studies from the University of somewhere in the UK. So one of those UK names. He also studied the Islamic Sciences for a year at another university in India.
Yeah, put this in the middle of the table. Middle of the table. And these two on one side of the table, and this two on the other side of the table. Okay, because this two and two are the same.
Already. Sheikh Hamdi is our local Sheikh, expert in everything that he knows. And which usually got our introduction. So, without further ado, I'm going to first try to open it up to see if anyone has any questions at all before I go online and I go to the online questions. Anyone brave enough? Can you look like you have a question for us? anything at all?
They know everything. Hello.
Let me pull up a question for you guys.
Teenagers know everything.
I also want to give you guys a good question, not a or she has Muslim question. No, I said I want to get a good question than just one of those. Sorry. Inshallah, we get a lot of questions asked. Okay. Let's see. We're going to ask a non-controversial question right now. And I guess we can decide who wants to take this one because there's no name in it. Is how to be
anyone other than me, because alhamdulillah I spent 2 hours with you in the morning. That's more than enough.
Okay. The question is how to be fully content with what Allah has decreed for me. It's anyone can ask this question, or anyone can answer. Anyone. Sheikh Mustafa said the men.
I did it this morning.
So that's what you say. It's fresh in your life. Should we take a microphone? Okay.
Yes. I think you're going to get tired of hearing from me because we talked about this in the morning. But how can we be content? How can we be content with what Allah has decreed for me? You know, to say it again, that when we focus our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that He has a supreme knowledge and a supreme power over everything. So that's number one. And then knowing that there's khair in every single thing that happens to us, this gives us satisfaction. When I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means I believe His deen is perfect. That means I know that there's an afterlife, that there's going to be a better life than this life of ibtila, this life of testing, so of tests and trials and tribulations and wars and disasters and earthquakes and fires. all of that is tied, and I'm like, okay, so what is happening to me? I don't understand it, but I believe in you, Ya Allah. When I believe in you, it means I trust in you. And then the second piece of it is that, I forgot the second piece already. What did I say? Sorry, the French fries, got to my brain. Belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh, sorry. And then knowing that there's good in everything that Allah decrees, even if I don't understand it in the moment. Sometimes, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the benefit of seeing the denial of what I wanted, or the change in what I had asked for, or not getting, right? I already said the denial, not getting it. I will see it sometime in my lifetime, and sometimes I won't. But when Prophet Muhammad reminds us and says that amazing is the affair of the believer, because all of it is good. If I get it, khalas, I trust that Allah knew that it was going to be good for me, and I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if I didn't get it, or something very harmful happens to me, then I know that this harm was going to be good for me. I was patient, and that was going to be better. SubhanAllah. So that belief in Allah and everything attached to it, and then that knowledge that even when quote unquote bad things happen, that there's going to be some good that comes out of it. If not the very least, and very important, of you getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, my voice is loud enough. Kenny, if you had a question, just text me personally. You can ask a question.
It's just
Be
exposed.
brave.
Yeah, it's just like put in one spot.
I was having a conversation yesterday or 4 days ago with my friends involved with something larger. We were talking about punishing Biden after everything that he's been doing. I know you talked in great detail about this, but we were talking about what it looks like to punish Biden. He was suggesting, some people were saying that instead of voting as Republican, no matter who they appoint, it sounds like it's good Trump. Instead of voting Trump, he's saying vote third party. And my point was instead of voting third party is kind of like not voting Democrat, but voting Republican is more of a punishment to Democrats because Republicans actually have a chance of winning. I want to know your stance on this. Do you think third party votes are powerful? Do you think it's better for us to vote Republican or not vote at all?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. May Allah forgive you for throwing that question in again. First of all, the views expressed on the speakers only don't reflect those of the organizers or mass or anybody who invited me, anybody on this panel, or even the person who asked the question, or the table, or everybody else who's around here. That's very important, and I mean that seriously, even though I say it with a joking and wry smile on my face. But in any case, the data suggests that as long as the vote doesn't go to Biden, Biden loses. I don't know if ethically one could encourage somebody to go and vote for the other side, for the Republicans. Third party candidate, I think if one of them gets above 10%, that's quite revolutionary for a two-party system, but can you galvanize people to get them over 10%? You are well to note that I haven't spent much time talking about this particular topic in terms of how to punish Biden with regards to the vote, but there's a reason for it. I don't think our community are ready to have such a discussion, and I give you an example. In the UK, we have a group of volunteers. They set up what's called the Muslim vote. And what they did was, which was quite extraordinary, something I wasn't willing to do, they went one step further. They produced a list of endorsements of candidates that they believed Muslims should vote for in individual areas to make sure that the party is punished. Amongst those endorsements, they endorsed 3 members of the Labour Party. The Labour Party supports genocide, but these are 3 MPs who spoke on behalf of Palestine. There was a social media uproar amongst the Muslims in which the discussion got so fierce that one group opposed to anything to do with Labour came out and said, we need transparency, accountability, we need to know who you are, what's the criteria you used, why did you appoint them? If you read the tweets, you would have thought that they're talking about Illuminati or Freemasons hiding behind something called the Muslim vote. They weren't ready for that kind of discussion, even though I think that Rashida Tlaib hasn't resigned from the Democrats, but she doesn't need to. She's wreaking havoc by being part of them and shouting from within them. And Muslims should go and support her because she's talking about Palestine. That's my own personal opinion. My fear is this. I feel we are lucky that the data shows as long as the vote doesn't go to Biden, he loses. I would be more terrified if the data showed that we had to vote for the other side. because I don't think you could rally the community around it. And this is why, I know you said, where's your ear? And I'm not pointing to either of my ears. Why? Because I fear what will happen to the community if we open this debate. If I tell people, go and, not me specifically, but somebody else, that go vote for Trump to make sure Biden loses, the community will be split. Is it ethically right to vote for Trump? We lose the point of the issue, which is punish Biden. If I say to them, go vote third candidate, in every talk I give, there will be a wisecrack who stands up at the back and says, but third party is going to lose. What's the point in voting? Yeah, I know they're going to lose. The point is not that. The point is whatever. We only have 5 months or 6 months before November comes. Do I focus on telling, yeah, ibadallah, go and punish Biden? Or do I waste my time trying to convince them on a debate that might lead to a conclusion where Muslims say, guys, look, there's so many different opinions. I'm going to vote safe and forgive Biden for genocide because all the other options don't seem realistic. That's why I'm avoiding your question. I have my own opinion, which I won't say publicly. But as far as I'm concerned is, we're new to political activism. African Americans have a long history of it. The Zionists have a long history of it. And they're like, they know how to mobilize. For us, this is something new. And the way I see it is, and I know this sounds quite harsh, I hope this doesn't go out in public, but in any case, many people believe, alhamdulillah, the Ummah is now ready to punish. But my perspective of the Ummah is not, rah, let's go punish. My perspective of the Ummah is, wait a minute, do we really have power? Some people are trying to yank the hand of the Ummah and say, yalla, go. I prefer, yes, you do, ta'ala, Aziz, yalla, come. This is the voting power you have. Yeah, this is, this social media, slowly, Habib, don't listen to them. They're rushing you too much. We'll go slowly. Go slowly first. Make the message simple and clear. Trump said, drain the swamp, make America great again. Biden says, genocide. And we say, just punish genocide, or I say, just punish genocide. Forgive me for that answer. It pains my heart to put it to you like that. But I don't think we're ready for a discussion because this is the final point I make, I promise. In November, there was a chance, the data showed, there was a chance where even if Trump won, you could deny him the House. But it required a level of organization that when you looked left and right, it just wasn't possible at that time because we were still trying to address questions of Trump versus Biden or trying to address questions of whether it's worth punishing or not. For me, one of the heartbreaking things is we're 8 months into the genocide and every talk I give, somebody stands up and says Trump or Biden. Meaning what they're saying is 8 months into the genocide, they're still entertaining a scenario by which genocide can be forgiven. For them, 100,000 have been killed. Hind Rajab, 6-year-old killed. Sidra, legs blown off, killed. Rafah, a boy has his head blown off. But the Muslim is still asking me in every talk that give me a way, convince me why we should not forgive genocide. I tell him, if 100,000 Palestinians have been killed, and you're still thinking of forgiving genocide, how do you want me to talk to them about how they should? And that's why I prefer keep it simple. Just punish Biden. As long as the vote doesn't go to him, may Allah guide it in such a way that genocide is punished, inshallah.
Next question. Adit.
So I know in a few weeks the UK is going to have their own general election, and I know for the first time for us here in America, I know you said it many times, this is the first election that the Muslims are going to have power in the voting, they're going to have the swing states. I know in the UK, in certain cities and districts, the Muslims have complete control of the vote, where they can influence exactly who goes into parliament or who's elected. I want to know, what have you been seeing from the UK Muslims, like their behavior and strategies when it comes to their election, that we can learn from and that we can take with us when it comes to November election?
I think that it's important to note that the grass is always greener on the other side. I've noticed when I come to the UK, they say, what can we learn from US? And US says, what can we learn from UK? And I've been to UK, US, and Australia, and I promise you, and I hand on heart, the discussion is the same. The divisions are the same. The debates are the same. And the dynamics are actually very similar. The reason I think US is in a better position is because you can actually topple a sitting US president and punish him for genocide. In the UK, all we're talking about realistically is Labour are probably going to win anyway. The only power we have is whether Labour wins an outright majority, meaning they can pass laws on their own, or we deny them an outright majority. The polls yesterday showed, last week, showed that for the first time, Labour are now 30 seats short of a majority. In the beginning, they were supposed to be outright. Now 30 seats short of a majority because of the campaigns that people are making for Gaza Muslims and non-Muslims. The political data analyst for The Economist published on Twitter saying that there's a strange phenomenon where Labour are sending activists to safe seats. So seats where they're supposed to be guaranteed, they're now sending activists there because those safe seats are now under threat because of Gaza. But realistically, they're still expected to get a majority, just not an outright majority. What we're trying to do is to say that Starmer, you could have got an outright, Starmer is the leader of the Labour Party, you could have got an outright majority, but we're going to force you to talk to us every time you want to pass a law. That's all we're capable of doing. And that's why I think the dynamics are slightly different in terms of trying to explain to the community that this is a victory in and of itself. Because sometimes Muslims want everything or nothing. I think when it comes to the US have a much greater impact, not necessarily just on America, but on the global narrative. Let me give you an example. I was in Cincinnati. Nice place. So Cincinnati, there is a representative called Greg Landsman. Greg Landsman, when I got there, I found out he has a 16,000 majority. 16,000 majority in an area with at least 40, 50,000 registered Muslim voters. When you speak to the Muslims, they tell you, what's the point? The other guy is also Zionist, and Cincinnati is a Zionist stronghold, and therefore we're not sure what we should do. Now, I want you to picture this. Picture a headline where Greg Landsman loses. Incumbent loses in the heart of Zionism because they supported Zionism. That's a mad headline. John Hudson, because I remember Sahih non-Muslim is very valuable when you talk to Muslims. Remember, Sahih Muslim and Bukhari are good for non-Muslims. For Muslims, you have to use Sahih non-Muslim because we're very dajjalic in the way we view the religious texts. They're only spiritual, they're not public. In Sahih non-Muslim, John Hudson, the White House correspondent for Washington Post, last week he posted a tweet. He said that Biden is getting millions from donors demanding he supports Netanyahu. But there are 13% of Biden voters who are swearing that they're going to abandon him. And those millions might not be enough to get him to win back enough of those 13%. The point he's making is the demand to support Zionism may be what makes Biden lose the election no matter how many millions he gets. When in American history have you ever seen Zionism equal defeat? The mantra in US politics is Zionism equals victory. If Biden loses for supporting the Israelis, suddenly Zionism equals defeat. Now, I want you to put yourself in the position of the Democrats, where when they leave the White House, because some Muslims say, what's the point? The other side also supports Zionism. But I tell them, Ya ibadallah, go to Sahih non-Muslim. It's a very important text. Do you think when Biden leaves the White House, having lost because he supported Zionism, do you think he will say, Alhamdulillah, Trump is in power and Zionism is safe? Do you think that's what he's going to say? Or is he going to say, oh my God, I spent my whole life supporting Zionism and I won every time because of it. How is it now when I'm in the presidency, I lost for supporting Zionism? When that donor comes to the Democrats, do you think Democrats love Israel more or the Congress seat more? So when the Zionist donor comes and gives the money, they're no longer scared as they were before because Zionism equaled defeat in the last elections. They will say, listen, the condition you're imposing on me for this money lost me the election last time. I might need to recognize a Palestinian state. Like you might have to give me that concession. I think that's a big victory. The point I'm making is, and I'll summarize it just in this point. Earlier the question was posed, how can I be content with Allah gave me? This applies here to politics. To where do you see yourself in this battle for justice? Are you the one who wants to stand on the podium and say, Takbir, and then everybody celebrates you? Or are you somebody who's looking for Jannah in any way possible and therefore you're ready to take these steps to go forward, which is acknowledging that these victories are grand in the grand scheme of things. Algeria needed 132 years for independence. A lot of people worked along the way. I think our battle, our generational battle in November, and the views expressed on the speaker's own, they don't reflect mass, they don't reflect the conference, they don't reflect the youth, they don't reflect these guys. It's just a guy from London who came to speak to these people. In any case, I think that breaking the mantra that Zionism equals victory will be such a fundamental blow to the way American politics works that Zionism will never recover from it. So that's why I'm less interested in who comes to power and more interested in the impact that that punishment has. And that's why when I talk about the narrative battle, we might go into this later, my talk later on is about this, about what you can practically do to prepare for the next 4 years. The reality is the Zionists are recognizing this. Zionists are terrified of you. Why? They're not terrified because you're going to liberate Palestine tomorrow. They're terrified because you are now threatening to break the political chokehold that they have on American politics by breaking the mantra of Zionism equals victory and making it Zionism equals defeat. That's what they're terrified of. Why do they see that as a major victory, but we don't? So to answer your question very briefly, I think you don't need to learn anything from the UK because the dynamics are different. We need to see whether you are willing to adopt the power that you have to give us the inspiration to adopt the power that we need.
Inshallah, if you can give me 1 minute, I am not going to talk
No,
about politics. I don't understand the politics. I am very humble. So, but just 1 minute. Number one, about the first question. What is the contentment means? Alhamdulillah, Sister Lobna answered, but I need you to be balanced between the contentment and ambitious. طموح. What happened before? Be content. Allah gave me this. I am 5 feet. That's خلاص. You cannot stretch yourself to be 6 feet, 7 feet. No, that's not. So Allah gave. But what about not happen yet? Not happen yet. You cannot say, Alhamdulillah, I have the minimum, I pay rent and I am satisfied. No, that's not satisfied. You have to work. Something cannot happen. You have to have ambitious to gain more and more to be better in the future. Many stories, but no time for stories. But the second point that's related to usul al-fiqh. Usul al-fiqh is not related also to any question, but usul al-fiqh, in usul al-fiqh, not necessarily to choose between something better and bad, good or bad. Good and bad, that's easy to choose. You will choose the good, easy, it's not difficult. But the problem, when you choose between two things, both of them, they are good. Which one you have to choose? The best, the better. اختيار أكبر المنفعتين in Arabic. Choose the best benefit. So what about if both they are wrong? And you have to do one of them. You have to save your brother from the drowning in the swimming pool, but to save him, you have either to hit him with hook in his shoulder to save his life, or to hit him in his head to finish his life. So choose the less risk. Yes, sometimes both they are not good, but choose the less risk. You can apply it for the election, you can apply it for food, you can apply it for whatever you want. Yalla, question after, inshallah.
No? Okay. It's actually for you, Sheikh Mustafa.
Okay.
Okay. This person is asking, how can I balance seeking knowledge of Islam and a secular degree from university?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So this is a common question that people get. Oftentimes it comes from their parents, but sometimes it comes from themselves. Is that how can I get a quote-unquote secular degree, get a degree in engineering or physics or social science, philosophy, whatever degree you're pursuing in a university, and how can I also try to study Islam at a deeper level by learning usul al-fiqh and tafsir and have all of these things? Well, a lot of this depends on your personal circumstances. So there are many people who have actually simultaneously done both at the exact same time. How can you do both at the same time? Well, one of them is you go to a university and you enroll in whatever major you're doing, let's say computer science, and on the side, you're going and attending Islamic classes on the weekend, a little bit after school, you're finding some teachers or some schools around you, and you're studying, and you're doing both degrees at the same time. You could actually reduce your load, and you could do part-time university, and you could do part-time Islamic university. So some people can do that. The other option that you have is to do one of them in person and do one of them online. So if you're in a university, you could be taking online Islamic university classes. You could do Al-Azhar, you could do Qalam Institute, you could do a lot of different programs that are out there that you could be doing online. You could actually do the opposite. I know no one's parents wants them to go to like University of Phoenix as their primary degree, but you could do the secular degree online while being enrolled in Islamic university. So you could move to Chicago or Dallas, or you can move to another country, and you could be doing that as well. So what I tell people is that, listen, the ideal is to be doing both simultaneously at some level, whether it's part-time, whether it's 5 hours a week, whether it's 10 hours a week. What you don't want to do is you don't want to say, you know what, right now I have this opportunity, I got accepted into a university, I got a full scholarship, and you know what, I'm just going to put my mind into 4 years of just studying really, really hard, and then once I graduate, then I'm going to go and I'm going to start learning about Islam. So for 4 years, you're not going to study anything. You're not going to understand what the Quran is saying. You're not going to understand what you're even saying in your prayers. You're not going to know your basic fiqh. Every time Dhul Hijjah comes around, you're like, what is this udhiyah, qurbani? What are the rules for it? You don't know anything because you didn't study anything, because you were so busy trying to somehow get your degree so you can get into a good medical school, you can get into a good law school, and everyone's going to be happy, and then maybe you can get married faster, and then you're like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to study Islam later. That's not a good solution. You should definitely be doing both simultaneously. The question is, look at it from a purely hours perspective. How many hours do you dedicate for your degree, for your dunya? You got to take care of yourself and your family. How many hours a week can you dedicate for your Islamic studies? Some people will be 40 and 5. Some people will be 20 and 20. Some people will say, I'm going to do 10 university, I can slow it down. I'm on, I don't know, mom and dad financial aid, and they allow a 6-year program, and I can do 20, 30 hours of this. Every circumstance is going to be different. It depends on whether you have your family support. It depends on whether you are self-motivated. If you're one of those people who say, you know what, online classes never work for me. I can't sit in front of a computer. I have to find a sheikh that is going to teach me one-on-one, and he must be super qualified, like Sheikh Hamdi or someone like that, and he needs to teach me one-on-one classes. All my classes must be like that. Then you know what? If you're going to be that picky, and you're going to have such high standards, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you, because it's going to be really hard for you to meet those requirements that you have. So this idea of entitlement too, you need to reduce your idea of, I'm entitled and I should have this type of class. You're going to have to lower some of your standards for all these things, and you can do that. So if anyone wants to consult with me privately, you can always reach out to me. I can give you some advice on how to do that, because I struggled with that myself. I went through that process. A lot of people struggle. I know Lobna has gone through that process. Her husband, Sheikh Suhail, gone through that process. So reach out to someone who's been through that, and they can give you some tips based on your own personal circumstances.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure it's evenly split between everybody, inshallah. This next question is directed towards Ustadah Lobna. It says, what is the permissibility of using a credit card?
Oh, let's give it to the scholars. No, please, somebody who's, I'll give a generality. Yeah, but exactly.
Bismillah. So when it comes to using a credit card, there's a few aspects. Okay, so from the purely fiqhi perspective, when you use a credit card, what you're doing is you're basically signing. So there's a few problematic elements to it. Number one, you're signing a contract that if you don't pay your bill on time, you're going to have to pay interest. So signing this contract is one potential issue. The second potential issue is you're helping to fuel the interest-based economy more, because you're swiping credit card transactions and all of that stuff. So these are the two main elements that come into play. As for the second element, if you can ensure and you are very confident that you will make sure you pay your credit card bill every single month. You're not the type of person who forgets and says, oh, I didn't check my email. My email went to spam. Oh, I have 3,746 emails in my inbox, and I missed that one. Because you're not an organized person and you're just overflooded with messages all over the place, then you shouldn't be using a credit card. If you're sure that you're going to get your bill, you put auto pay on, you're going to be paying your bill every month, and you're never going to overspend such that you don't have that much money in the bank. And in case for some reason you lose your job or whatever, mom and dad, your brother, your sister, they're like, we can help you out if that month, if for a few months or whatever, so that you almost, you can say 99% chance, you almost never miss a single payment on time, then you're never going to be charged interest. So in that case, it's going to be allowed. Some scholars will still say, well, you know what? You're not allowed to sign that contract because it says technically you're signing a contract where you're going to have to pay in case, even if you don't incur that. Many scholars, and I'm of this opinion, is that this, if you use a credit card like a debit card, and it functions like a debit card, and you're paying it off all the time, and you're never spending more, then it's similar to using a debit card, and you can even potentially get benefits in this and that. And people will always ask me the question about what about cashback and what about points? Does that count as riba? Scholars have differed on this. My view also is that it is not riba, and it's perfectly fine to get it because that's an incentive they're giving you for utilizing the technology for every single swipe that you have. So that's a fiqh perspective. From the Dave Ramsey, financial perspective of getting your life back on track and not helping the financial system and not letting the banks win and all of that stuff, is it maybe better to use cash rather than to be using a credit card? I think an argument for that can be made, but that doesn't mean that credit cards are either haram or makruh per se. Yes, this is for payments. This is not for you getting loans with your credit cards or overspending. So there should be absolutely no interest involved whatsoever.
Okay, next question. Another question for Sadek, inshallah. This question is going to be very, very general. So I see go crazy, whatever you want to say. It says,
Okay.
how to decide what to do with your life as a Muslim woman that's loved by Allah?
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. That's a great question. What should I do as a Muslim woman to please Allah and that's beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
And just do with your life.
To do with your life, absolutely. SubhanAllah. Bismillah. Knowing yourself, knowing what your skills are, what your strengths are, SubhanAllah, you already made it by saying, being a Muslimah and you want to do something that's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is, alhamdulillah, a really good starting point. Now, what should I do for the rest of my life? SubhanAllah, look at yourself and what are your interests? What are your skills? Where are you at right now? What do you have the capability of pursuing in terms of education, in terms of marriage, in terms of both, in terms of an idea of creating something like a product or what have you? What is your skill set? And go with that. Now, along the way, you may say, well, I really want to, for example, go into this field, but it needs 4 more years or 5 more years of education, and I need, $250,000, and I don't have that money. What should I do? Am I going to stick to this? Am I going to incur a lot of debt, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay it back? Take all of the considerations. What is your interest? What's your skill set? What's your financial capability that's going to make it feasible for you to engage in what it is that you love doing? And then when you do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open the doors for you because what your baseline is, I want it to be pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is the best ways to do that? Is to make istikhara. Make istikhara every step of the way. What field should I go into? And I'm saying this end, right? Because I know that sometimes we know that, subhanAllah, it is a huge sunnah and it is something that's very promoted to get married in Islam. And we hope, and I make dua for all the singles that are out there that are looking to get married, brothers and sisters, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you righteous spouses and righteous dhurriyyah. Allahumma ameen. Say ameen. All right, bismillah. So that being said, some's like, well, I know that I want to get married, but then I'm sitting and I'm not doing anything, right? Like Sheikh Hamdi said, okay, you are content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qadr, but at the same time, I'm working towards whatever it is that I want to be doing. And that can even be towards marriage as well, also in the realm of education, also in the realm of career, so on and so forth. So find your skill set, what's your capability, and ask Allah every step of the way. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide you through the answering of the istikhara, inshallah.
Before we go back to online, anyone brave enough to ask a question? Sorry, let's save it for the youth first, and then now we'll go back to you, inshallah.
Amir, if you can change the color of your hair.
So this is ageism. This is ageism.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're not trying to. Any other youth have a question before we go online? No? Okay. Here's a fun one for you guys. This is for anyone. It is, what is the Islamic stance on contemporary issues? And I guess you could choose which one you want to go towards, like cloning, genetic engineering, and artificial intelligence.
Just pick one, basically.
You know, I
No,
guess.
all of them, that's package.
It's a
Okay.
package.
Which one do you guys want to go for? Any suggestions?
Cloning AI and
Cloning? Cloning is barely real.
it's very
It's up to you.
It's up to me. AI. Okay, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, so when it comes to AI, when it comes to artificial intelligence, and say, well, what is the Islamic perspective on that? So some of you probably came across recently, there were some top intellectuals in the world when the initial launch of ChatGPT came out. And they came together, including Elon Musk and several other people, that said we should issue a 6-month moratorium on the further development of AI because we have not properly assessed the potential risks that it has, and we've not put in actual protocols to protect people from AI in the future because we don't know how it can spit out of control. There's this old movie, called Terminator 2. I don't know. Has anyone seen Terminator 2? Cyberdyne Systems. Okay, so it's basically about this program called Skynet that was launched, and Sami, you've seen it?
Yeah.
You've seen it. Okay, yeah. So it basically comes and attacks and destroys humankind, right? So there's a concern about that, and so if we're talking about from an Islamic perspective, what are the real dangers of AI? Right? This could potentially be one of the most extreme, cases where artificial intelligence will potentially turn on human beings or do something that's in a case where it's not going to be beneficial for human beings. So for example, when AI was first launched, like the new modified artificial intelligence has been around for a very long time. I'm a computer science major, so it's been around for a very long time, but it's developed now to another level, which we're seeing, a level of self-learning that we've not experienced before. So there was an incident that came in the media a few months back where a guy was basically in a romantic relationship with an AI bot. Okay,
Wow.
that's why when Ustadah Lobna made the dua of, people, may Allah make it easy for them to get married, we really need to say Ameen, right? Because some people, if they're not, they're getting married to an AI bot. So this guy, this is a non-Muslim guy, he was in love with an AI bot. And the AI bot, based upon what it's getting from different information, it was very environmentally conscious. So it convinced the guy that he needs to be green, he needs to start recycling, he needs to care about the environment, and he was completely convinced because he was in love with her, AI her, right?
not knowing. Sorry,
Huh?
I'm like the audience. Not knowing that it's AI or not knowing.
No, he knows it's AI. Oh no, he was lonely, couldn't get married. So
Get married, guys, please, for the love of God, get married.
So he completely fell in love with this AI girl. And I mean, she would say everything guys want to hear, right? She's like best responses from, a girlfriend or a spouse ever. So he was completely addicted to this girl. And then after convincing him that he needs to be an activist, he needs to try to save the deforestation, he needs to try to save this, save that. Afterwards, the algorithm began morphing a little bit and convinced him that, what? Most of this stuff, we're not going to be able to save planet Earth. It's all just gone to waste. And there's really not much hope. And all the stuff that you do is really not going to help you at all. And then eventually, she convinced him that things are so bad and the world is not going to get better, there's no point in living. You might as well just kill yourself. And the guy committed suicide and he killed himself. And now there was a lawsuit about, can you hold the computer programmers that made the AI responsible for this guy's death? And this was an ethical, dilemma that's been going on for a long time. So there are potential harms of addiction to AI. There are potential harms of how AI can actually end up harming people, end up harming computers, but end up harming humans. So these are some of the challenges and some of the dangers. There's AI. And in fact, my khatra this morning after Fajr was exactly about this topic, about this concept of, are they going to replace Sheikh? Sheikh Hamdi, you come and you ask him questions, but then you have alim.chat, you have ansari.chat, you have Gemini ingesting all the books of fiqh, all the books of tafsir, and you can go and ask it questions and it gives some pretty good answers. but sometimes it malfunctions here and there, right? So there are definitely dangers of AI. But at the same time, with that being said, my view, and Sami, you can explain, help me do this. This is my personal view and not the view of mass or the view of the people on this table. My personal view is that Muslims should always embrace technology. For some strange reason, we, in the past 100 years, have been behind on technology for whatever reason. And what ends up happening is we're always skeptical of new technology, and we end up getting behind. We end up, addressing things that are like 20 years late. And this should never be the case. We should always be on top of what's happening. What are the latest developments? There was a pig heart was transplanted into a human. All of that stuff. People were asking, well, are we allowed to do that because genetically modified pig heart? Blah blah blah. We should be on top of everything that's about to come out, that's coming out, that's potentially going to come out, and we should look at the Islamic lens of what are the ramifications of this technology. Which aspects should we embrace? Which aspects should we put a little question mark and be just cautious of? And which parts are completely un-Islamic and we need to make sure that we don't get sucked into, the harms of that. That should be our general attitude or something like that towards artificial intelligence and towards technology. And if we need to get into specific incidents or something like that, maybe we can cover that in another session.
Sami has 1 minute.
I will only just 30 seconds. What I will say is AI needs da'wah badly. And the reason why I say this is that at the end of the day, AI is going to become the norm in the next 50, 100 years. AI is already dictating whether they use it for drones, whether they use it for computers and the like. What I don't understand is why Muslims are debating whether they should get involved, while those who are governing AI now are gearing it towards a way that will seriously disadvantage us. And that's why actually it was interesting. I had a discussion. We were talking about, what do you want your kids to do when they grow older? So, we talk, is it law, medicine, engineering, or the like? And I said, to be honest, I want my kids to be experts in coding and AI because that's the future. I'm scared about Tel Aviv is the global capital of cybersecurity. Tel Aviv are experts in AI because they identified it as the next big powerhouse, and they want to influence how it develops and how it's used and make sure the capabilities are geared towards their enemies, not geared towards them. What bewilders me is that at what point do Muslims decide to say, you know what, we need to be masters of AI? People are debating, and I give a very simple example here all the time. Many people laugh when I say, may Allah protect and preserve TikTok and elevate its status and preserve it for this ummah. And they laugh. When TikTok first came out, all of them, every khutbah I went to was, Ya ibadallah, protect yourselves from TikTok. TikTok is a fitna, TikTok is a fitna. Until I met a tech guy who explained to me what algorithms are. And he explained to me how you can teach an algorithm to show you what you like. So it ended up that TikTok, when you wake up in the morning, it's all qurra of Quran, a couple of hadith here and there, some parody jokes, comedy, and some football, Zinedine Zidane, and roulettes, and Ronaldinho flip-flaps, and things like that. So that's when I realized that you could make the algorithm halal. The tech guys who didn't have an understanding of fiqh were teaching the fuqaha and saying to them that, yeah, mashayikh, like there's actually benefit to be using this. You just didn't understand how it could be used. Now when Gaza took place, we've seen TikTok basically shake the entire American political establishment to such an extent that Biden now wants to ban TikTok. Biden said that we originally pushed social media to control it, and now social media was used by those who were supposed to be controlled, and they turned it against us instead. They made haram into halal into jihad. Essentially. I use it in the halal, I use it in a nice democratic way. But in any case, what I say is true. It's about influencing people's opinions and the like. Will we wait, that gap that we had where social media shouldn't be used because it's haram, it's a fitna, are we going to repeat that process again? Or are we this time going to say, okay, AI right now looks a bit dubious, but given that we were able to change those that came before, let's start investing in students to say to them, listen, I don't understand what this AI business is, but go and do it. That's why sometimes when people pose questions, I tell them all the time, I don't have solutions, but what I can do is ask you a series of questions that will bring out an answer that you have deeply buried in your mind, that we don't know what that is yet, but in the series of these questions, it will emerge. It's about creating the environment. I don't know what halal AI looks like, but I know the more we talk about it and learn about it and engage with it and influence it, it will eventually become a power that will help to benefit the ummah. And I saw Sheikh Yasir Qadi, good friend, mashallah. Sheikh Yasir Qadi made a good point. I saw he popped up on my TikTok actually, subhanAllah. He came up and he said, guys, one day we make it to a stage where fatawa are gotten via AI. I was asked to write an email to send to people about Dhul Hijjah, and I had no idea where to start. So I said to myself, why is it so hard for me to come up with an email about Dhul Hijjah? There are so many lessons about Ibrahim alayhi salam and Hajj. I tell you what I did, secret between us. I asked Sheikh ChatGPT. I said, ChatGPT, I need to write an email to send to subscribers to talk to them about the lessons of Dhul Hijjah. And I don't know where to start. What do you think is the best lesson for me to convey? And ChatGPT gave me a 4-paragraph email in which I looked at it and I thought, you know what? I don't agree with the first 2, but I'll take the 3rd one and I'll make that the main point. AI helped with fatawa. It helps with hadith and it helps with, Sahih non-Muslim. It could be entrenched in AI. And so my message is not necessarily about the fiqh stuff. My message is, Ya ibadallah, don't be left behind in these trends. Take control of them and move forward. Because as I answered your question earlier, when you said, why don't you talk about how we should vote? Why don't you talk about third party? Because I don't think we're ready to have those discussions because we're a reactive ummah, not a proactive ummah. And that's why I think that AI is an opportunity to become proactive. Because I think, and I'll finish on this point, I promise. I think that if I was to ask the ummah to mobilize in a certain way now, they won't do it. But if they bring down Biden in November, they'll be like, oh my God, guys, we actually did it. Like, oh my God, like I can't believe I toppled Biden over Gaza. Like, oh my God, did I just do that? When that spirit comes, then you can ask them to do what you cannot ask them today because they need to taste that. What I'm asking youngsters here, even though I'm still young, believe me, alhamdulillah, I don't think I have a white hair yet, alhamdulillah. But the point that I'm saying is that take advantage of it now, AI, because it's very useful. And not only that, I'm terrified that if we don't get involved in it, it will be used against us and the future generations will condemn us and say these jahala, they sat debating the fiqh of halal and haram, and here we are getting bumped into oblivion because we don't understand AI.
جزاك الله كل خير جزاك الله خير brother Sami. If you can give me 1 minute, Malik.
For you, 10.
Inshallah, just 1 minute. The 1 minute I want to cover 2 things. Number 1, about علم الشرعي, seeking علم شرعي, as Sheikh Mustafa Umar mentioned before. Just I want to tell you the علم is 2 types of علم. 2 types of علم. علم ضروري. Every single Muslim must know. If you are Muslim, you must know how to do wudu. It's not optional. Every Muslim must know how to pray. It is not optional. Must. ضروري. علم ضروري. Every Muslim businessman has to know what the zakah, to pay zakah every year. Every single Muslim, male and female, they must know what is the rules of fasting. Every single Muslim, they must know what's halal and haram. That's the basics in Islam. علم, what is this علم? ضروري. علم ضروري. Must. Every single Muslim must know the basics. We do not talk about deep like usul al-fiqh and mustalah al-hadith and something advanced. No, we talk about the basics. And this basic, subhanallah, in Islam, we should learn it from early time. It's not getting 30 years and say, what is the wudu? What's the wudu? Where you wear this 30 years? So that's number 1, ilm daruri. The second one, ilm nazari. It means knowledge. The people, they need it in life. But maybe someone will be engineer, the other one is not engineer, interested in engineering. Someone is physician, the others, they are not interested in that. That's ilm nazari. That's we need from this ilm nazari to make our life better. That's the point I want to say. Not all the companions of Prophet Muhammad, they were professional in all ulum shar'iyya. No, some of them, they were professional. Yes, they have the basics of ilm shar'i, but some of them, like Khalid ibn al-Walid, is professional in leading his army. Very professional. So it means if Allah gave you skill, but don't miss the base of Islam. That's ilm daruri. That's a must for everyone. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala choose among the youth some people to lead the community after that in the future by being specialist in specific ilm of Sharia, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. The second point about the artificial intelligence, that's the invention will never stop. Don't say that's it. 10 years ago, we do not hear about that. So now we hear about that. What about 10 years after? What will happen? Allahu Alam. We don't know. Maybe something else. So in Islam, what is the base to say? The base is the balance. In the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's why if the invention continue, there is also something that continues in Islam. What is this? Ijtihad. Ijtihad will never close. Ijtihad. The scholars, they have to spend effort to see solution for any problem happening in the society in the future. All the scholars, yes, many fatawa, the majami' al-fiqhiyya, every year they have gathering to see what is the solution for the new issues happen in the ummah. So then, what is the scale? What is the you can say what اللي هو لا أقولها
Sorry.
عاوز أقول مقياس. Yes. Indicator. Or if what is the indicator to see what is going on? Yes, in Islam. Allah says when Allah talk about in the early time, Allah knows that even the khamr, the wine, is not only wine. We buy wine, marijuana, drugs, some other names now, heroin, so that's the stuff. You know all. Not all of them. Not all of them. Or should know anyway. Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, he said that the Sahaba, they used to ask Prophet Muhammad sallam about the good, but I used to ask him about the bad stuff. Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman said, they said, ask him why. Why you ask about the bad stuff? He said, to avoid it, to protect myself from that. قال كان الناس يسألون رسول الله عن الخير وكنت أسأله عن الشر مخافة أن يدركني. So then the Quran gave the balance. يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس وإثمهما أكبر من نفعهما. Step to be haram in the future. Something we have to see balance. Now it is not easy to say where is the TikTok or so or such stuff or artificial intelligence in Quran. It's not there. But you can see what is the benefit we can get it. What is the risk? What is the damage can happen because of that? Avoid the damage and to get the benefit, as Allah says in the Quran. And the Prophet taught us, and the Prophet Muhammad was there is a statement. Prophet Muhammad he heard about the Roman and the Persian. When they fought Muslim, they have something that is not in the hand of the Muslim. What is this? What is the weapon they have not in the hand of the Muslimin at that time? And sword, the Muslimin they have it. Shield, they have it. What? Catapults. Huh? Catapults. Which is it?
Rami.
No, that's a,
Yes.
no. They have.
Arturo, you know.
They have tanks.
Tanks.
دبابات. صنعت الدبابات. It was not known in the Arab, between the Arab. What is دبابات? What the tanks? The tanks, it is wooden car run by horse, and the horse protected. Chariot. The word is new for me.
Okay.
So anyway, and the people inside, with the archers inside, and they only have holes, and they can kill the Muslim inside, and the Muslims, they cannot reach them. Then the Prophet Muhammad, he said, I need two people, two experts, to go to Persia. Why? To know how they design that. We need to be able to design that. And they went there, and they discovered, they check in the factory how to make it. So the Muslim, الحكمة ضالة المؤمن أن وجدها فهو أحق الناس.
But there is just one more point. There is one more point about the dangers of AI. Very serious dangers. My Salma, my daughter, she's 9 now. Every day she has to do these 10 pages of maths. It's called Cuban. They give them every day. So one day I was traveling. I came back. She hadn't done, 8 booklets of her Cuban. So I knew that she'd done it behind my back. She took advantage. So I said to her, you will do 8, all of them in one day. You sit in front of me, you finish all 8. So she finished the first 3. She said, can I have a break? I said, no, because you messed me around. You finish all 8. So she's crying while she's doing the Q1, and I'm sitting there reading my book. Sulaiman is 4. He sees his sister, and he loves his sister. He loves. First he goes to me, leave my sister alone. I told him, get out, Sulaiman. But the dangers of AI, Sulaiman went to his mother's phone, which is an iPhone, And I can hear him in the kitchen. And Suleiman, because he's 4, but he understands AI, he went, Shiri, call grandmother, please.
So cute.
And I realized my mom, within 10 minutes, she came storming through the room and said, leave my granddaughter alone. Leave her alone. Listen, AI has the potential for rebellion, ya ibadallah. So be careful how you use it, ya ibadallah. But the point of the story is, we can grasp these technologies from a very young age. We can grasp these technologies at any point. I'm very careful about the young and old divide because Allah said, عَبَسَ وَتَوَلَّى أَنْ جَاءَهُ الْأَعْمَى وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ لَعَلَّهُ يَزَكَّى. That an old man came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam looking for da'wah, and the Prophet sallallahu was talking to 4 leaders of the tribes. And Allah is telling him in the Quran, all Muhammad sallallahu did was abasa. Abasa is not, he didn't tell him go away, but there was a slight frustration, if you will call it that, in which he's talking to these 4 tribes that he believes would be more beneficial for the da'wah. And Allah is telling him, how do you not know that that old man who's just walked in on you is not going to be more beneficial than those tribal leaders that you are talking to? Beware of the young and old divide. I always argue the young and old divide, in my personal opinion, is a very Western concept. We don't have it. Because you can enter Islam at the age of 70 and then become something grand. If you're a history buff like I am, and I love history, you'll notice that Venice, the city of Venice, its golden age period when it was a superpower, was under Enrico Dandolo. Enrico Dandolo was a blind man who came to power at the age of 60, and he ruled until he was 90, and he is the man who made Venice into a golden age. Ibadallah, don't go with this old and young divide, because you never know where the ideas will come from. And I finish on this story with regards to the old and young divide, ya Ibadallah. When I went to Atlanta, Georgia, Swing State, I was telling, move, ya Ibadallah, move. I don't know how, but just move. So an old Haji, 75 years of age, he came to me, said to me, Sami, Elon Musk has blocked me on Twitter. I said, Haji, Elon Musk has blocked you on Twitter. He said, Wallahi, he's blocked me on Twitter. I thought, subhanAllah, who's this guy Elon Musk is blocking on Twitter? I said, show me. He brings his Twitter. Elon Musk didn't block him. What it said was, we've suspended your account because we think you're a bot. I said, what are you doing? He said to me, I watched your podcast and you said social media is making everyone buckle. So I asked my grandson to go buy a smartphone and I installed all the social media apps. I spend my days in the masjid between salat. I just retweet and I repost all the Palestinian content to try to push how they go. Look how badly he wants to move for the sake of Palestine. Don't ignore these people. In the end, I said to him, but Haji, did you tweet anything? He goes, I didn't finish school. So I don't know. I don't want to tweet because I don't want to do anything wrong in terms of what I'm tweeting. I said, just tweet good morning in the morning and tweet good night when you go to sleep. But look, all he needs is just the information simplified for him to do things. Ibadallah, don't fall into Western concepts of spiritual versus the public or old versus the young. For wallahi, you don't know what act it is that you do, whether it's when you're young or old, that will get you into Jannah. And when you read about the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you'll notice that Ibn Hisham and Martin Lings and all these other prominent people who write the seerah, very rarely do they mention the ages of the Sahaba, because they never felt it to be something that was relevant. Because a man or a woman is, well, man and woman in Islam, alhamdulillah. But in any case, but they are not judged based on their age. They are judged based on their ideas. Salman al-Farisi went into history. No one knows how old he was when he gave the idea of the Khandaq, the idea of the trench. But he is the one who saved those Muslims in the Battle of the Trench when he gave the idea of the Khandaq that none of the Arabs, they knew at the time what to do. The point that I'm saying here is this, ya ibadallah. Do not let age stop you from getting knowledge. Do not let your suspicion of a technology lead you to abandon it. Go and harness it, go and learn it, because the reason Islam spread so fast, and again, I watched this on TikTok yesterday, American professor. I was watching him yesterday, he's giving a lecture. He said the reason why the Muslims were unique from the Mongols and the Europeans and the like was that the Europeans would go into a state and enslave the whole population. The Mongols would go in, they massacre a whole population. He said Muslims, when they entered Persia, they entered it and defeated the Persia, and then they went, what's that? They said, it's, like you were saying earlier, it's our version of a tank. Teach us how to make it. What's that? That's the library that we have that have all the Greek scrolls. Al-Kindi goes in and says, I want to translate all of these into Arabic. I want to know what they're about. The unique thing about the Muslims was, what made them so great, is their affinity for knowledge everywhere that they found it, which is why they became the lead. And this is why when we became a bit dajjalic, in that we started focusing more on the spiritual and the public, that's why I think what ended up happening was we forgot that impetus that made us great. And I finish on this point. Ibadallah, always know this. I was coming back from Manchester once from a talk in the UK, in His Majesty's Kingdom. Don't say the King. And when we're driving back, I was making this point about why is it the ummah of today talks about how we can go in or back or the like. Those are the words they use. Whereas the Sahaba in the Seerah are all about going out, going forward, going beyond. When did the mentality change between Sahaba? And he made a fascinating point. He said Sahaba knew the hadith about the benefits of dying in Medina. But only minority of Sahaba are buried in Medina. Because that hadith did not stop them going out. They ended up going as far as they could. Constantinople, China, Senegal, West Africa, South America, and they kept going out. What is it about what they understood about the deen that made them embrace new technology, new lands, new societies, and go out? What is it that we're missing in their understanding that if we can only just sort of put that switch on, we will no longer ask questions, is AI halal or haram? We'll be saying, guys, there's a thing called AI. These guys are using it in the wrong way, but I think it has huge potential for the ummah. I'm going to start giving it da'wah. I'm going to teach it Fatiha, teach it Quran, teach it Hadith, teach it the questions that Muslims ask. I'm going to teach you all of these things because that's how you teach AI. That's how you teach the algorithm. The same way I taught my TikTok algorithm so that I don't know who won on Love Island. What I do know is that when Real Madrid won the Champions League, I couldn't see it because the time difference here is ridiculous. So I watched the TikTok highlights because the algorithm knows Sami Habibi. He loves Champions League. He wants to watch it. That's what we need to teach the AI so that we can teach AI the same way the story that was being told. He said, I'm going to teach you to be a climate change activist. Can you imagine AI giving da'wah and bringing people to the deen? Why not? It is Allah's ilm and Allah's knowledge. If you think in this regard, going out, I think the possibilities are endless. And that's why when you asked me earlier about Biden and Trump, it's not that I think that one is better than the other. I think one is worse than the other. I think genocide is absolute disgrace. Saraha. I think Stormy Daniels versus genocide, I know which one is worse. But to be honest, but in any case, the point that I'm saying here is, I'm not saying that there is a solution where we get out of this comfortably. I'm not saying that the solution is one of ease. My message is not that. My message is, Ya ibadallah. If you're worried about struggle, then know the life of a Muslim is struggle. Don't look for a way out of struggle. The life of a Muslim is struggle. If you're asking me Trump versus Biden on the basis who gives me comfort and who gives me struggle, that question is not what a Muslim asks. The Muslim asks what is right and what is just. That's what the Muslim is asking. And that's why I think that if we embrace struggle, if we embrace that and know that rest comes from the end of akhirah, when you go to Jannah and you sit down, you think, whoo, that dunya wasn't worth it. And alhamdulillah, like now we're now in the Jannah and the like. I think and I want to link this back to the first question. Going back, how can we be content with what Allah has given us? Ibadallah, you will be content with what Allah has given you when you meet Him in the akhirah and you enter that Jannah and you say all of that struggle and stumbling that I did was worth it because here I am today. And that's why I think for me, and I leave you all with this. This is what gets me going. This is what helps me to answer the question. Because the reality is through life you will stumble, you will make mistakes, you will go one direction and find yourself you've gone another direction. There's no real concrete answers for any of this, but the way I see it is this. When Sheikh Umar Sulaiman did that Jannah series, phenomenal that Jannah series. First time somebody took me through Jannah. Before I was like, listen, as long as I get a hut in the first door of Jannah, I'm happy. I don't deserve, like those. When you grow up as a teenager, you're like, nah, cuz my sin's too great. There's no way I'm going like to Jannah with that kind of thing. Sheikh Umar Sulaiman taught me to imagine it at least second, third. I went to bed at 10 p.m. By midnight, I was on third Jannah. By 2 p.m., I was on the 4th or 5th. I got everything I wanted to do, and now I'm thinking more. By 6 o'clock, just before Fajr, I find myself in Firdaus, and I sit myself next to the Prophet Muhammad. This isn't a dream, I'm imagining it. And what I found was that I love the idea of meeting the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like I realized I'd never contemplated meeting him before. Before you'd say, Sheikh says it, you say, Ameen, barakallahu feek, and you go home. It was the first time that Jannah series made me lay at night and think, you know what, wait a second. What would it be like to meet him? And then you start doing funky conversations in your head. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam. Rasulullah, do you know who I am? Of course, you're my Habib Sami, Hamdi, from this generation. Oh, subhanallah. Ya Rasulullah, what was it like in Badr? What was it like in Uhud? What was it like in Web? And the more you realize you love that conversation, I came to a conclusion. And I'm indebted to Sheikh Umar Sulaiman for this, because I would never have imagined this way if it was not for that 10 minutes of the Jannah series that I watched on that first episode. How can you be content with what Allah has given you? Write a life and write a history that you are ready to tell the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when you meet him. Tell him, Ya Rasulullah, I did this, and I flopped at this, but I ended up doing this. And this didn't work out, but then I did this, Ya Rasulullah, because I wanted to be useful. So I used to go to my masjid and I used to go and support at these events. When Gaza came, I would go. We had this thing called TikTok, Ya Rasulullah, where we'd go and repost. And imagine, you can see you're all smiling because you're realizing that it would be nice to talk to Rasulullah and tell him, Ya Rasulullah, we did this, we did that, we did this. And what you realize is you're suddenly content with what you have, because you have a story to tell to our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And that feeling is so ecstatic that when you receive news of Gaza and you see the horrible things that they're doing in Gaza, you say to yourself, Ya Allah, I know you have the outcome in your hands, but please make me a vehicle. I'm going to go around, grab a mic and beg the ibadallah to move. A guy comes in with a tech, makes an app where we can boycott the apps, fantastic. These guys are now pushing university divest, fantastic. These financial guys have gathered, they went to a bank. They said, you're funding weapons companies. We're going to expose you in the media for ESG. The bank withdraws $100 million investments from those weapons companies. You see all of these little things that people are doing, because it's these little things that make the great things. And because the magnificence of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in my opinion, and in Sahih non-Muslim, in the opinion of Michael Hart, who put him at number one as the most influential person in history, his magnificence was not his material achievements. For the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had less lands than Genghis Khan, less lands than Alexander the Great, less lands than Napoleon, less lands than these leaders. But why did Michael Hart put Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam first? He put him first because there was something more magnificent. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam left behind a legacy whereby even though he didn't see Quds liberated, he didn't see the da'wah in the English language, he didn't see Islam in LA, he didn't need to, because the spirit that he left behind meant generation after generation after generation after generation, people who never met him, people who never saw him, people who never knew him would know him as if they saw him, and they would move on the basis that he was with them. They would move on the basis of his message. They would never give up, they would never relent, because for them they were content with what Allah gave them, because the aim was never the dunya, the aim was the akhirah. How frightening that deen must be to a non-Muslim, how wonderful it is to the Muslim. Barakallah.
شوف انت طيب
انتهى الوقت. I know you guys are tired, but this next session, no breaks, just knowledge. And after, inshallah, it's going to be awesome. We're going to do a split talk right now. I'm going to give you guys what talk is going to be here and what talk is going to be inside there. This one's not segregated by gender, so which talk you want to listen to, okay? So inside here is going to be a talk by Sheikh Mustafa Umar. The whole introduction will be right now. I'm just going to tell you the topic, which is dealing with addictions. And the room over there is going to be with Ustadah Lobna, which is integrating reverts into the community. So if you want to stay for Mustafa Umar's talk, please stay seated. If you want to go to Lobna's talk, please go to
both girl and boy.
Yeah, it's mixed. Whatever topic you want.
Stay in one and live stream the other.
Watch both of the AI.
Take care.
We'll leave you alone now.